Ms. Kuhn told you, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with regard to those items, did you note, with regard to the clothing items, as far as the gray sweatshirt was concerned, did you note any stains on those areas? On that clothing item?
Yes, I did note stains in those areas.
And then what, if any, testing was done on those stains that you observed?
Can you be more specific what stains you're referring to?
So what I'm specifically referring to is the items on the gray sweatshirt, item 7-18, as far as any stains that you observed on there. Again, sort of moving on from what you had collected for the UC Davis lab, but in other areas of that item. Well, let me actually first turning back to that. So the item that we were talking about as far as where you collected stains from that were sent off to the UC Davis lab, which item were they collected from and where on that item were they collected?
I collected 2 swabs from the areas around the damaged areas on the right sleeve. I wasn't necessarily taking them from any stains. I did use the ALS to determine if there were any stains there, which I did not visualize. So I was doing that for potential saliva collection from that area.
And thank you for the clarity. I think that was me confusing as far as the questions go. So turning away from that area as far as the collection for the UC Davis lab, in addition to that, what, if any, stains did you observe on that article of clothing 718, the gray sweatshirt?
I also observed numerous red-brown stains on that item of clothing.
And so with regard to those red-brown stains, what, if any, testing was done on those stains?
On each of those stains, I performed a blood screening test as well as a blood confirmatory test.
And are those the same sort of initial testing screening test you were talking about before, and then the confirmatory test?
Yes, that's correct. A different screening test was used in the lab than was used at the scene due to a protocol change, but essentially it's the same mechanism.
And was that with respect just to the gray sweatshirt, or were there other items of clothing of Mr. O'Keefe's that you tested with the screening test in the lab and a confirmatory test in the lab as well?
I examined other items of clothing as well.
Now, if I could bring your attention back to what's now been marked as exhibits 222 through 230. Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish some of those photographs for the jury.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could first have photograph 9841. And what's been marked as exhibit 222. Again, you recognize what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And with reference to your observations of the red-brown stains on that clothing or any other item of clothing, similar to the tears or cuts or the damaged areas that you observed, were those areas similarly marked with some sort of sticker?
Yes, that's correct.
And is it sort of the same linear path as far as numbering, or is it lettering, or how do you denote those?
For the red-brown stains on this item, I used letters.
Starting with A and then sort of going through it, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have, photograph 9842. Again, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That would be red-brown stain A that I noted on the sweatshirt.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9843. And what's up on the screen, which has been marked as exhibit 224, do you recognize that as well?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Those are red-brown stains B and C that I noted on the sweatshirt.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9844. What's up on the screen now is exhibit 225. Those are stains that you labeled B, C, and F, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's just sort of a holdout version of that to denote where B and C were located on the sweatshirt. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9846. And what's now up on the screen is exhibit 227. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom in a little bit on those figures. And Ms. Harden, if you recognize what's up there on the screen as exhibit 227.
Yes, I do.
And these are 2 other stains that you noted as far as D and E on the same item.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Now, Ma'am, with reference to the other photographs that I think you still have before you that I gave you when the stenographer was marking the last batch, do you recognize generally what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photographs of item 7-17, the orange T-shirt that was told was belonging to John O'Keefe.
And what's depicted in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed as far as the orange T-shirt was concerned in your lab that day?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll also seek to introduce the witness. The next exhibits.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I can read these here.
Exhibits 231 through 241, Mark.
Thank you. Mr. Lally, we have a few minutes before lunch. Do you intend to display some?
I think maybe.
If you do it quickly. Do it now.
Okay.
If you're not, we'll take a break. Jurors, we're going to take the luncheon break. I'm going to see counsel at 10.
All right, the judge sounded a little irritated or annoyed and finally just said, okay, it's time, let's take our break. And this forensic scientist, really key evidence, the forensics, that gray sweatshirt, the shirt of O'Keefe. We're gonna take a break, of course. When we come back, we'll get you in for more trials. Stay tuned.
The NWSL is on ION. Leading off our doubleheader, history will be made in the Windy City on the hallowed grounds of Wrigley Field. Here, the Chicago Red Stars take the pitch against Bay FC. Then we head to Providence Park, where the Portland Thorns take on the North Carolina Courage. Coverage begins Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on ION.
Back now to Massachusetts for the killer or cover-up murder trial. Prosecutors say that Karen Reed killed her boyfriend, Boston officer John O'Keefe, after hitting with her SUV, but the defense is claiming a massive cover-up by O'Keefe's fellow officers. Let's take you back into court now. Forensic scientist is testifying to O'Keefe's bloody clothing, direct examination by the state. Let's go back in.
Good afternoon.
So with respect to the photographs that were just marked as exhibits of the orange T-shirt, that was item that was marked as 7-1. Is that correct? I'm sorry, 7-17.
Yes, that's correct.
So similar to how you had marked off areas of either damage or red-brown stains, was that similar to what you did with the gray hooded sweatshirt? Is that similar to what you did with the orange T-shirt as well?
Yes, that's correct.
And then there were two other clothing items that you examined, being a pair of jeans and a set of sneakers, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with reference to the jeans, that was marked as item 7-1, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And with respect to the sneakers, that was marked as item 7-4, is that correct?
Each sneaker had its own item number. One was 7-3 and one was 7-4.
And with respect to the evidence as far as the stickers and sort of the denotations that you had made in regard to either damage or red-brown stains, was that similarly done with respect to each of those remaining clothing items as well?
Yes, that's correct.
You know what I may approach?
Yes.
So as Harden, with respect to the jeans, showing you a series of 8 photographs. Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are photographs that I took of the pair of jeans.
And what's contained in those photographs, a fair and accurate portrayal of your observations of those jeans when you conducted your examination of them at the lab.
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll oath the seat to introduce and debate the next exhibits.
All right, and there's no objection, you said, Mr. Jackson, correct?
Thank you.
It's 242.
Yes, please. Your Honor, if I may, with the court's permission, publish some of the photographs in the packet from 232 to 241.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have, excuse me, photograph 9862. And Ms. Harden, do you recognize what's up on the screen that's now been marked as Exhibit 231?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's a photograph I took of item 7-17, the orange T-shirt, and it's the exterior front.
And Ms. Gilman, 9863. And again, Ms. Harden, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 232?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the exterior back of item 7-17.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9867. And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on sort of the upper right portion of that where the stickers are. Now, Ms. Harden, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 233?
Yes, I do.
And again, using the laser pointer, if you could draw the jury's attention to any items that you, or any areas of this shirt that you marked on.
I marked 3 specific red-brown stains using these stickers and letters A, B, and C.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to keep the zoom in, but go to the bottom left of the photograph. And similarly, Ms. Hartnett, within this zoomed-in portion of Exhibit 233, could you, using the laser pointer, could you draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, you noted there?
I noted red-brown stain D, which I marked with the sticker, and D on the bottom right.
Last name, Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9873. And Ms. Hartnett, what's up on the screen is now been marked as Exhibit 239. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on the upper left portion of the photograph. And again, Ms. Hartnett, if you could, using the laser pointer, just draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, you noted there.
I noted this specific red-brown stain, and I marked it E.
Thank you. And Your Honor, similarly, with the court's permission, if I could publish what's been marked now as Exhibit 242 through 249.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9878. Ms. Hartnett, direct your attention up to the screen with now the marks as Exhibit 242. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's a photograph of the exterior front of the jeans with the belt, item 7-1.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9887. And as you testified before, similarly to the other clothing items that you testified about, did you mark off certain items of interest or areas of interest on this item as well with respect to the jeans?
Yes, I did.
And is that depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9888. And if you could just zoom in, just a bit, Ms. Gilman. And again, Ms. Hartnett, if you could, using the laser pointer before you, direct the jury's attention to those areas that you noted or that you marked off in respect to this.
I marked off red-brown stains A, B, C, D, and E on the front of those jeans.
Thank you. All right, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Hartnett, showing you another series of slide photographs. You could just review those.
All right, let's bring in, joining us today, trial attorney Kelly Hyman. Kelly, it's been a while. Thank you so much for being on with me today. Talk about what I almost say the insignificance of this evidence. We see there are very few red-brown spots, 4 total on an orange t-shirt belonging to the victim, 5 total on the bottom of the jeans belonging to the victim. That's not a lot of blood or forensic evidence, quite frankly.
That's a good point. It's always nice to see you, Judge. Absolutely. As you know, the state has to prove their case, and they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so what they're doing is bringing in a forensic expert to kind of go over the evidence and kind of lay out kind of what it does, what she has tested and stuff like that. So potentially it could be key. Definitely looking for the cross-examination. That's where the defense counsel is going to try and poke holes at this case, anything to say to help their potential defense as well.
Does it make a difference to you if we learn that it's either his own blood, John O'Keefe's, or rather someone else's? Like, what if that blood belongs to the defendant? I'm sure we're going to find all this out.
That could potentially be a strong case for the defense, because the defense is one of their arguments supposedly is going to be that there's something else going on, that that there was issues with the way this information, that this stuff was collected, and also that there was someone else involved. So that could potentially be a key point if there's someone else's blood involved, to go to the whole reasonable doubt, because if there is reasonable doubt, then the jury cannot convict her of the crime.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And we know that we're finally getting to the forensics. A lot of the beginning of the trial was all the eyewitness testimony of the people inside that house. Now we're finally getting to, well, what forensic evidence supports the state's theory that she ran over him with her car. Stay tuned. You'll stay with us, Kelly. When we come back, of course, we'll get you back inside this trial in Massachusetts. We are in day 19 of the killer or cover-up murder trial. Karen Reed is charged with second-degree murder and vehicular manslaughter after prosecutors say she hit her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with her car. The defense claims, however, that Reed is being framed. If convicted, she faces life in prison. We want to get you back inside the courtroom. On the stand right now, we hit the pause button. A forensic scientist is testifying about O'Keefe's blood-stained clothing. Let's go back in.
Do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are photographs of the sneakers, items 7-3 and 7-4.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth seeks to introduce the minutes of the next exhibits.
Okay.
No objection.
Thank you.
Two 15 and 251.
Thank you.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, with reference to the sneakers and sort of the other clothing items that you received, do you recall how or where or when it was that you received each of those respective clothing items? Or how the lab did, you know?
They were received by the lab from the Norfolk Detective Unit.
And as far as the sneakers being labeled with two different stickers, do you know why that was?
One of the sneakers was recovered from 34 Fairview Road, and one of the sneakers was recovered from the hospital.
Now, with reference to the photographs that I've just placed before you, have you had a chance to look at those?
These ones here?
Yes,
No.
if you could. And do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs there?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
Those are the fingernail clippings that were submitted for John O'Keefe
And do you know where they were submitted from?
by the Norfolk County Detective Unit.
May I approach you?
Yes.
I'll call them up and see if you introduce in a minute the next exhibit.
Okay.
Two 55 and 258.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, with respect to each of those, I'm not seeking to publish those to the jury at this time. So,
Okay.
Court officer.
The lights back on, please.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, with respect to those stains on the gray sweatshirt, the orange T-shirt, and the jeans, what, if any, testing was done with respect to those stains?
A screening test was performed on each of the Rembrandt stains on those items. I'm sorry, did you say the sneakers? Could you repeat what items you're speaking of?
With respect to each of those respective clothing items, what, if any, testing was done with regard to any stains you observed on those items of clothing?
For the sweatshirt, the T-shirt, and the jeans, I saw visible red-brown stains, which I screened for blood. The majority were also, I also performed a confirmatory test for blood. There was one stain on the orange T-shirt, however, that was too small to perform that confirmatory test. So for that instance, I noted that the stain was quantity limited, and I preserved it after the positive screening test instead of performing a confirmatory test in order to preserve enough material for any DNA analysis. As far as the sneakers, given their dark color, I did not see any visible red-brown stains on the black area of the sneakers, so I used an alternate light source to aid in visualizing any potential blood on those sneakers. With that alternate light source, I tested several stains on the sneakers, one of which screened positive for blood.
Now, with respect to the other clothing items that you were talking about doing the screening test and the confirmatory test for blood, with respect to the gray sweatshirt, the orange T-shirt, and the jeans, what were the results of that screening test and that confirmatory test that you ran with regard to each of those?
The screening test and the confirmatory test were positive.
Now, beyond the stains, did you take any additional samples from those items?
Yes, I did.
And what were those and how was that done?
For each of the items, I picked up any loose trace material, which would be hairs and fibers or apparent hairs and fibers that were adhering to the item. I also did a scraping and swabbing for skin cell collection of the unstained areas, and that involves taking a sterile scalpel and swabbing the areas of the clothing that don't have any visible stains on them, and then taking 2 cotton swabs and swabbing that same area, and then combining those scrapings and swabs for potential DNA analysis. In addition to those, I also took a scraping of each of the materials, and that involves taking the item, using something like a flat metal spatula, and scraping down whatever adhering materials left on the item into a glassine packet.
And as far as those items, once they're collected from the material or from the clothing, what do you do with them from there?
Each of those items is given its own item number. It's a sub-item of the overall larger number used to mark the item, and those are sent to the appropriate units for additional testing.
And as far as preservation is concerned, when it comes to sending something to either the trace unit or the DNA unit, what, if any, steps are taken in regard to preserving those items once they're removed from the clothing and sent off to the other units?
Each of those items would be preserved according to protocol. They are sealed properly, initial and dated with my initials and date. They're entered into our LIMS system, so those sub-items could then be tracked throughout the laboratory, and they're stored in the appropriate storage unit.
Now, at some point, did you also receive items that were labeled as 3-2 and 3-3?
I submitted those when I returned from the original scene.
And what were those, ma'am?
Those are pieces of glass from the bumper and a drinking glass from the crime scene.
Now, did you examine those items?
Yes, I did.
And what, if any, examination did you do, and what is it that you were looking for in your examination?
I did a visual examination, and I took photographs, and then I also took a collection from each of the items.
And did you do any testing on those items?
No, I did not.
And what kind of samples did you collect from those items?
I took potential skin cell collection using a swab moistened with sterile water.
And as far as the samples that you took from, as well as the items themselves, what, if anything, did you do with reference to those once you were done with your examination?
The swabs were preserved for testing in the DNA unit, and the original items, the apparent pieces of glass and the drinking glass, were preserved for the trace unit.
And as far as those preservations were concerned, is that similar to the preservation process you were describing earlier with regard to the clothing items?
Yes, that's correct.
So both Ms. Tallali and Ms. Harnett, you have to keep your voices up, or we have to turn the air conditioning off.
Understood, Your Honor. I may have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The end of direct, a great time to take a break. And you can hear they established chain of custody. They're saying everything was done correctly in terms of how the evidence was maintained. What are they going to attack on cross-examination? We'll bring you that up next.
Coming up tonight on Closing Arguments, the Karen Reed trial. Testimony back underway. We'll have the biggest moments and the best experts coming up tonight.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV. This week,
join us each morning to get trial ready for the day's proceeding. Plus, deeper dives into true crime stories with our daily spotlight.
opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings starting at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
We'll We'll get you back to court in just a moment, but first, an update out of Florida. Jury selection is underway in our newest live trial, the Strangled Woman Murder Trial. Actually, it's the Strangled Women Murder Trial. The defendant is 30-year-old Wade Wilson. He faces several charges, including first-degree murder for the deaths of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. Both women were killed within days of each other back in October of 2019. Melton was found dead in her home, while Ruiz was found in a field several days later. If convicted in these killings, Wilson faces the death penalty. Opening statements are expected to begin on Wednesday. Now let's turn back to the Karen Reed trial in Massachusetts. Right now we're hearing from a forensic scientist. She's facing cross-examination by the defense. That is just starting. Let's see what they try to attack.
Responded to Canton Police Department. A lot of your testimony was about what happened in the Sally Port, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You were asked if you responded to the Canton Police Department on February 2nd, and most of your testimony was predicated on that date, you going over there and doing some visual observations, as well as some removal of items and some other testing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Was it February 2nd or was it February 1st?
May I check my notes?
I'd appreciate it if you did, yes.
My apologies, that was my error. It was February 1st.
Okay, so everything that you testified to, you only went once.
Yes, that's correct.
So everything that you testified to having taken place on February 1st, we should assume it was actually on February 2nd, we should assume it was actually February 1st, the one time you were there.
Yes, I was there one time.
Okay. Were you dispatched to the Sally Port? And I apologize, I'm not yelling at you. I'm trying to keep my voice elevated, so just so you know.
Understood.
It's not my normal speaking voice. You were dispatched at the behest of one of the Massachusetts State Troopers, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The Detective Bureau specifically, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Trooper Proctor more specifically, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Trooper Proctor, you knew at that time to be the lead detective, the person that was in control of the investigation.
May I check my notes who I wrote down as the lead investigator at that
If it
time?
would refresh your recollection, sure. With the court's permission.
Yes.
Yes, I was told on scene that Trooper Proctor was in charge of the investigation.
All right. Now, while you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to just do an overview of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Obviously, that was important given the limited information that you had at that time about a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
So you were looking for anything that would rise to a level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Hence your review and notation of certain scratches on the vehicle. Is that right?
Yes.
Which may or may not have anything to do with the incident, but you noted it anyway, correct?
I did not draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from.
Okay, you just took the words right out of my mouth. My next question, the dent that you noted and photographed, you made no conclusion that that occurred as a result of a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
The scratches, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them. The scratches that you denoted and had photographed, you made no conclusions about that having anything to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
Even the broken taillight. At that point, you made no conclusions or drew no scientific conclusions about that having anything at all to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
You did, however, look for tissue, human tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the car itself. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
In that review, I think you testified that you saw nothing that suggested the transfer of human tissue to the vehicle, correct?
I did not see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle.
You were told, Ms. Hartnett, that there were scratches on one of the extremities of John O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
Were you shown a photograph of those scratches to assist you in your visual review or examination of that vehicle?
Not at that time, no.
To this date, have you seen a photograph of his arm and the injuries to his arm?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, if I may, if we have it, could I display for the jurors and for Ms. Hartnett Exhibit 19?
Is this the one that's
The arm
covered a bit?
has been
Okay.
cropped,
Yes.
Your Honor.
All right, while they're readying that picture, let's bring back in trial attorney Kelly Hyman. Boy, do I like the pace of this cross-examination, kind of going after no conclusions about a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, now talking about the scratches. What do you think?
He's trying to poke holes, right? It's the defense job to try and poke holes at her testimony and see if he can get anything that's going to help potentially their defense, because their whole defense is it wasn't her fault, that there may be some other people involved. As judges, you know, the state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So whatever he can do to poke holes, to have that jury thinking, well, maybe this wasn't her. Why was this happen? It helps his case.
And it's textbook cross-examination. He wants the jury to hear what he's saying to plant reasonable doubt. He's not as concerned really about her answer. Let's go back in for more.
Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in Exhibit 19?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of scratches previously, correct?
Yes, I've seen a photo containing
Okay,
something
and that's
similar.
consistent with the photo that you've seen since your visit to the Sally Port on February 1st, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Was there anything in your, by the way, did you look at all around the vehicle 360 degrees?
Yes, I did.
Did you look toward the top of the vehicle as well as toward the bottom of the vehicle?
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle. I did not examine the roof of the vehicle.
Understood. Did you examine the undercarriage of the vehicle?
I did look at the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And you know what I mean when I say undercarriage?
Yes.
Could you explain for the jurors what you mean when you use the word undercarriage?
The parts that normally you would have to see by, bending over or laying underneath the car to view what's underneath the vehicle.
That would include the frame and the axle and the drive shaft, transmission, things of that nature.
Yes, I'm not confident in all the terminology of the undercarriage, but yes.
Did you see anything that was suggestive of or consistent with the pattern of injury that you see to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm?
I wouldn't say I'm qualified to make any kind of pattern determination in what would match the injuries on his arm.
So the answer to my question is, as you sit here, you made no observation of anything on the SUV that matched these injuries, correct?
I wouldn't be.
Sorry. Go ahead and answer that.
I wouldn't be able to testify from that from memory. I don't have a photograph of the undercarriage, nor did I make any kind of conclusions about that at the time.
Okay, understood. And you didn't take any, the swabs and samples that you did take variously on the car all came back negative for human tissue, et cetera.
The testing that I did on scene from the various areas of the undercarriage, which I had mentioned before, the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, and the exhaust pipe, screened negative for blood.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, can we take this down?
Yes, I was just going to suggest that. Thank you, Your Honor. On February 1st, 2002, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle itself, you also mentioned that you took swabs of what you believe to be blood evidence contained in 6 solo cups, correct?
Yes, I noted those as frozen red-brown stains in red cups.
Were those solo cups in any way labeled among themselves? In other words, solo cup 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't believe they were, but I don't have a photograph of that, so I'm not 100% sure.
You did not thereafter label those solo cups. If they hadn't been done beforehand, you did not undertake that to label those solo cups, correct?
No, I did not label them.
Did you, how did you take those swabs? Was the swab done in one solo cup, or did you take a swab from all 6, or how did you take those swabs that you ultimately did take?
I took those swabs from one solo cup.
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups you were going to take a swab from?
I don't recall exactly how I chose which cup. It was reported to me that those cups came from the same area of red-brown staining, so I assume, you make an assumption that they're all related. It came from what I was told, it came from one area of red-brown stain at the scene.
Thank you to Kelly Hyman for joining us this hour. Coming up next, more testimony in the killer or cover-up trial for Karen Reed. Plus, Matt Johnson brings us an update from inside the courtroom. We'll be right back.